you, my little son, will be called the prophet of the Most High, because you will prepare the way for the Lord. You will tell his people how to find salvation through forgiveness of their sins. Because of God's tender mercy, the morning light from heaven is about to break upon us, to give light to those who sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, and to guide us to the path of peace. These were the words spoken from Zechariah, John's father, when John the prophet was born into the world. He was the forebearer of peace to the world, the forebearer for Jesus. This is the second Sunday in Advent, and is anybody else being disturbed at this moment by the flickering lights? What a great opportunity to practice peace in the midst. You know, if anything, I think that Charles and Myrtle Fillmore really wanted us to understand, the co-founders of the Unity Movement, really wanted us to understand one thing. This is about practical Christianity. This is about the real deal. This is about how do I bring the teachings of Jesus, as we understand Jesus, into our lives right here, right now, in every experience. So I am going to explain what's going on here, but not yet. I'm going to give us an opportunity to sort of be with this. Okay, everybody breathe with me. It's because of the energy, so making up reasons. That's a good one. I think that this is a great way to deal with it, right? That there's something that's disturbing us. Today is about peace. The second Sunday in Advent, this time of preparation, preparing for the peace, the Prince of Peace, the Christ essence to be reborn in our hearts by whatever name, but in preparation for Jesus' birthday, for a real experience of having that Christ born into our lives, into our consciousness, that we might express it in the world. So today's focus is peace. Last week was faith and hope and giggling with the children. Next week we'll talk about love. And the week after that will be in joy. Peace is this opportunity to stay grounded regardless of the circumstances around us, right? It is the thing that people have wanted for all of history's time. There have been moments of peace here and there in our individual lives, in our community lives, in our greater experience in the civic communities and in the world. And there have been moments of unrest, but peace is always what we desire. So here's the good news, and here's the challenging news. It's up to you. It's up to me. It's up to us as individuals how much peace we will experience in our lifetimes. So today I want to do this sort of writer's presentation of peace. There's the who, what, when, where, why, and how of peace, of experiencing peace. I'm going to go a little bit, not exactly in that order. I want to start off with the why. The why we look for peace in our lives is because we are genetically, spiritually programmed for peace. You are a child of God. And as this spiritual being having a human experience, there is constantly a call from that divine presence from God, which Jesus was able to make manifest throughout his life, throughout what he was teaching, so that we are continuously called to have an experience of peace, like our way shower and master teacher. And who is it for? Everyone. It's for you. It is available, regardless of circumstances, conditions. Our affirmation for the month of December: I am a perfect child of God. Together.
I am a perfect child of God.
Filled with wisdom, peace, joy, and light.
Filled with wisdom, peace, joy, and light.
Okay. I am a perfect child of God, filled with wisdom, joy, peace, and light. And this is true for your neighbor. This is your first and second steps into actually being at peace. Knowing this truth for yourself, and then knowing it for your neighbor. You are a perfect child of God.
You are a perfect
Come on! I'm dying up here!
You are a perfect child of God.
Filled with wisdom, peace, joy, and light.
Filled with wisdom, peace, joy, and light.
Okay, all right, let's try it one more time. Okay. Turn to your neighbor and let them know you are a perfect child of God.
You are a perfect child of God.
Filled with wisdom, peace, joy, and light.
Filled with peace, joy.
This experience of knowing it for ourselves and knowing it for others, peace is for everyone. It's not just about an inside job. I mean, yes, it starts there, right? But it's about putting that out into the world as well and seeing it in others. That is one of the first steps to moving into a sense of peace in the world, is to know that that is true for other people as well. Regardless of what you think of those drivers. Right? Regardless of what's going on up here. You know, this idea about Advent is this practice that is this belief. It's this belief. I believe that with my commitment to Jesus as my teacher and way shower, as the master, and whether your commitment is actually to somebody else as your master, teacher, and way shower, that means that that person is showing me the way to express my God-like qualities, my child of God qualities, in a way that lets me be a blessing to the world in a way that nobody else can be. It's my job. We are given one real job in our lifetime, and that is to express that divine presence, that divine essence from within outward. That's our real job, and we do it through lots of different expressions throughout a lifetime. But that's the real work that we're here to do. And so this time of Advent is getting ready for that. There are things that we can do in this co-creative process with God of expressing who and what we are. And one of those things is practicing peace. Another one of those things is practicing love. Another one of those things is just going ahead and accepting joy. And then doing it in faith. And it's all about this co-creative process, right? Because I don't do it on my own. You don't do it on your own. We do it with the divine essence at all times. And when we walk hand in hand with that Christ essence, that allows us to express it more and more. This is for you. It's for me. And it's up to us. In Hebrew, the word shalom means peace. But that actually, of course, is broken down even further in the Jewish tradition. It means complete. It means whole. It doesn't mean that there's a lack of conflict. I enjoy a great deal of, I enjoy TV shows that are, in movies that are starring Jewish people. Anybody like the marvelous Mrs. Maisel? So here's one of the things that I really enjoy about those stereotypical, I want to recognize that those are stereotypical, is that they're in conflict all the time. The stereotypical Jewish presentation in our media is that there is always conflict going on. And if you look back in the Bible, it's not like they came up on their own, right? This idea of peace in the midst of conflict doesn't say that we have to get the conflict resolved in order to get peace. And I think that that's one of the things that Jesus brought about as a teaching that was sort of missing before that. You know, it was always the Jewish people were going to, in the Hebrew scriptures, they're going to get to a place of peace. They're going to get to a place of everything's going to be okay. And what Jesus said was, no, it's here now. It's here now. Stop waiting for all this conflict to go away because it's here. Nero says, peace is not a relationship of nations. It is a condition of mind brought about by serenity of soul. Peace is not merely the absence of war. It is also this state of mind. And lasting peace can only come to peaceful people. That experience of peace within can only be out here in the world when we hold on to the peace that's already within. So that whenever, it's about when and where, it's everywhere all the time, right? So we do it both in preparation for being in the world, this experience of knowing peace, and then we do it in response to being in the world. Now, I don't know how many children each of you have or have had, all of you, but I got 4 kids at home. My natural response to conflict is not peace. My natural response, and I think some of it is nurture, right? Not nature, because my natural response is to be bigger, badder, and louder than the conflict going on, to conquer the conflict. But you know what? That does not nurture more peace in my household. It does nurture acquiescence and resentment and bitterness. I can see it. I can see it when I fall back into those old behaviors, those old ways of doing things, so that it looks like peace. It looks like things are calm. But that's not really what's going on in the hearts and minds of the people in my house. And so then the next thing is well, how? How do I do it then? How do I be with 4 kids that are all screaming at each other, and he did and she did, and but I want, and nobody ever gives me. Does anybody ever have this experience? No, thank you. I like to be the only one, because that gives me hope for the world. Well, and whether it's kids, I mean, that's my experience right now. This is part of my practice right now in my life, as I've been given this as part of my practice to refine my spirit, to refine my mind. And whether it's cars or money or houses or driving, whatever your experience is, I'll bet you have some experience out there giving you an opportunity to increase your inner spiritual peace. Now I see some heads nodding. Your opportunity to practice peace. Which leads us to the why, right? Why do we do this? Is it even possible? So I believe that Jesus was a way shower and teacher, showing us how to get there, how to be at that level of peace all the time, because he said, peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. And I believe that. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. All right, so let's get down to the how. So forgiveness. I got 3 hows because they're the 3 big ones, right? Resentments, forgiveness. Anybody ever have a resentment? I see big arms waving in the back. You know, resentment is one of those things that can show up in our lives. We get hurt. We get hurt and we decide somehow in our mind, even if we try to overwrite it sometimes, we have this resentment that says, what they did was wrong, it wasn't just, it wasn't fair, and now I'm angry. And the truth is, it may not have been just, it may not have been fair, but once we get that resentment sort of stuck inside of us, then we are the ones, and I'm sure you've heard this before, poisoning ourselves. A resentment is like the idea that we're going to poison, you know, that somebody had poison in their hand, but now through the resentment, we're just carrying that poison in ourselves. And it leads to all kinds of physical, mental, emotional ailments and problems into other relationships. It carries over. Anybody ever practice projection as a way of life? Right? That's one of the things that comes about with untreated resentments. So forgiveness is the answer. I got to speak with somebody on the phone the other day, somebody across the nation, who is having an experience of unjustness. And I'm convinced, I mean, I think she's right, that her experience is not fair. And I gave her a lot of empathy. And I asked her to be with her inner child, that child, and I asked her to spend some time talking about that. And sure enough, there's shame that comes up from her childhood. There's a message from her mother that says, I'm afraid for you. You know, something bad is going to happen to you. And then the prescription, though, the prescription that I gave her is the same prescription I would give myself or you, is write a gratitude letter. Write a letter of gratitude for this person. Because for 5 years, there was joy, there was peace, there was an opportunity to give and to receive, and this is a great gift in her life. But that time is over now. One way to move through and into full forgiveness is to recognize that it's past now, but that it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. The other is acceptance, which is what we get from moving into gratitude. Truly accepting conditions as they are. Now, anybody here have a body? Yeah. Yes. Now, some bodies are 100% perfect all the time in their expression in the world. And some bodies have an expression in the world that sometimes feels less than what we want to have happen. I have that sometimes, and I'm guessing that you do too. Really coming to believe that this body is perfect just the way it is, and that all of the body is working together for its whole expression, for its perfect expression. So I said that my grandkids were sick, some of my grandkids were sick last night. Those white blood cells are moving through the body immediately. That's what creates that fever. Those white blood cells are creating health right now. My friend Greg had surgery recently because there was all kinds of stuff going on in his shoulder. In the minds of men and women have been placed divine ideas of perfect health and how to help heal. I believe that those divine ideas of healing, of medicine, that bring about this sort of experience where Greg's going to use his shoulder in ways he hasn't used for a little while, that those are gifts of God. Being at peace with what is. And even in experiences where the body is done. I mean, our bodies get to be done at some point. Accepting that the body gets to be done at some point. Moving into that place of peace. And then, so if that's too big a jump for you right now, there's the one that is one of the 5 teachings from Unity's basic principles, right? It's meditation. Now, if I could get every single one of you to spend 3 minutes a day in meditation, I would swear that your life will be better. Just 3 minutes a day. Now, if you can do a half hour a day, that's great. And if you do more than that, then I don't even need to preach to you. The practice of meditation, of just sitting and being with something, when something has come up, so I'm going to bring us back to the flickering lights, because that is still with me. I know you all forgot about it. The idea of just sitting with it, and being with it, and noticing it. And not being distracted by other stuff, letting other stuff just go around you, but just turning in. So that what is it that comes up around that? And paying attention to the thoughts in your mind. And then noticing when you want to judge them or make them wrong. Just noticing the thoughts and being present to them. This is a mindfulness practice that is now being taught in elementary schools. I read a story about an elementary school down in California that had this huge suspension rate, this huge detention rate. They had some of the lowest reading scores. It was constantly a problem for children to be there. It was fine if the children weren't in the elementary school, but once they showed up, everything went to hell in a handbasket. So what they started doing, because they had tried not corporal punishment, because you can't do that. But they had tried all these other measures, and so what they did was they brought in this psychologist who started doing mindfulness practice with these kids. Sitting still. At first for 30 seconds. 30 seconds. And just paying attention to what the thoughts are going on in there. Now, in elementary school, what they did was they pay attention to the thoughts that are going on in there, and then after 30 seconds, the bell rings, and they get to talk about their thoughts. The younger ones get to draw pictures about their thoughts, so that they can come to an awareness of what the thoughts are. So many of us are led by lives, by thought lives, that we don't even know exist. We're not even aware of what goes on. Through a practice of meditation, we become aware of what goes on in our brains, in our consciousness, because what happens up here affects how we feel, how our bodies act, and how we act out in the world. When we start paying attention to the thoughts up here, we can accept those thoughts and maybe even dive into a little bit of curiosity. Where does that thought come from? Where does that thought lead to? Or maybe into a little bit of laughter. And how silly is that thought? How silly is that? That's not a real thing. And then choose to let it go and move on to the next thought. This practice has brought down the discipline issues that they had in that elementary school by 85%. And if it can happen with the little children, it can happen to you. It can happen to me. And part of what they think happened there is that the peace that these children started experiencing, because that's what happened, right? They stopped hitting each other. They stopped being mad and screaming at each other. They stopped defying the teacher all the time because they were at peace. And so when that happens, they believe that that had an energetic effect on the other children. Anybody surprised? They were surprised. And when I was a Sunday school teacher, there was a little boy. His name was Austin, and we're Advent. We're coming along to Advent and reading the birth of Jesus story. And he says, "I've heard this story before." And I said, "You're right. We're coming to the end of a year that we have touched back and forth on this theme from Unity Worldwide Ministries, one humanity, many stories. And we come back to these stories over and over again, and we come back to these themes over and over again because they have value and meaning for us. And every time we take another look at these stories, another look at the idea of meditation, another look at the idea of how do I bring more peace into my heart, into my mind, and into the lives of others. How? These stories, these experiences, these chosen activities of thinking about these things bring us closer to the expression of the Christ that we have come here to be, that you have come here to be. And that's what it's all about. That's your only job. Okay, these lights, we are going to have dimmer switches. Honest to goodness, it's going to happen. As a matter of fact, we have dimmer switches right now. Unfortunately, we have not perfected, much like my Christ consciousness has not been perfected in expression at all times. Please forgive that if it ever rubs up against your Christ consciousness or personality. Our lights are going to be perfect. They're just going to take a little bit longer. That is the truth.
Heart, there we go. There we go. Bring that message into our heart. Let's place a hand on the heart as well. There's only one presence, one power that is love. There is only one moment in this hour that is now. Everybody, love now, love now, love now, love now, love now. Sing that with us. Everybody, love now, love now, love now, love now, love now. Let's start from the top. There is only one presence, one power that is love. There is only one moment in this hour that is now. Everybody, love now, love now, love now, love now, love now. Ooh, everybody, love now. Everybody, love now, love now, love now, love now, love now. Ooh, everybody, love now, love now, love now, love now, love now.
Embodying the peace of God, I co-create a peaceful world. I invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable, and find a focal point on which they might rest if not. Just bring our attention to the body, blessing it, beholding it as this miraculous creation. Every part of the body, especially those that we would call less than perfect in our human experience, we bless it and call it perfect. We see the divine presence working in and through every part of the body, every cell alive with God. Open to this sacred source of life itself. We turn within and we invite peace into our hearts, into our mind, the peace I feel wells up from the depths of my being. From a place of silence, filled only with an awareness of God. The peace of God refreshes and restores me. This inner sanctuary, this place of the divine, is always available, open, ready. I willingly embody peace. I affirm there are possibilities for good in every situation, in every relationship. I am peace. I invite you to be with that truth of your spiritual being for just a few moments in the silence. I am peace. This is the truth of our spiritual nature. Peace is the very foundation upon which we live our lives. I am at peace. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. We're so grateful for this opportunity to live, be, and see peace in all things, in all people, and in ourselves. And so it is. Amen.
There's one presence, one power that is love. There is only one moment in this hour that is now. Everybody, love now, love now, love now, love now, love now. Ooh. Everybody, love now, love now, love now, love now, love now. Let's do it again. There is only one presence, one power.